Carolyn's done, we're going to take our normal BGMC offering today. But with that, Carolyn, why don't you share with us a little bit about BGMC?
Okay, I do this every year and I still get nervous every year, so just bear with me. I'm going to stay down here because I want you guys to focus on the slides, not on me. That way you won't notice when I stumble. What I'm here to talk to you about, as Pastor said, it's Boys and Girls Missionary Challenge. We call it BGMC for short. Technical difficulty. Are we on the first? Oh, good. Okay. All around the world, people live in poverty. They have many needs. They need food. They need water, clean drinking water. They need shelter. They need medical needs, and so much more. Sadly, children are the ones who suffer the most. Most of all, though, people around the world need to know about Jesus, and kids in the U.S. are helping through BGMC. Okay, now we're going to have a short history lesson. Because you're going to ask, where did it come from and how did it get started? Back in 1949, by the way, I'm not that old, supplies were shipped to missionaries in barrels. So the first Buddy barrel became the symbol as the mascot for BGMC. And the first containers, which we're one of the few churches in the state who still have some, are the adorable little wooden ones. Okay, now the first offering was $9.35, and that year they only raised $1,290.39, but you gotta start somewhere. These are the officials praying over all the materials that were going to be sent out. BGMC has a twofold mission statement. Number one, we're going to reach the kids of the world. And number two, we're going to create a heart of compassion in our kids. When kids get to BGMC, something happens in their hearts. They develop a compassion for those in need. Through BGMC, kids begin to know about life in other countries, care about others, pray for missionaries and the lost, and give to those in need. And they reach the lost in their own communities. Okay. Through BGMC, we meet critical needs around the world with a special emphasis on kids helping kids. Additional projects focus on curriculum translation, development, and kids outreaches, humanitarian, medical care, child welfare missions. Those are foster care and orphanages. Water initiatives, feeding programs, and anything else a missionary may need to spread the love of Jesus. Now, for an update on the numbers, I had somebody this past week ask me how many churches give to BGMC, and I tried not to laugh because I have no clue. But I can tell you that there are 4,100 plus donors around the world. Since 1947, we've raised over $200 million. We impact 176 countries, and we support 5,200 missionaries across the world. The last set of slides I'm going to show you is each lesson that the children get have a true missionary story in it. And it was hard because we get 12 a year, and I told Debbie I knew which one I wanted, and I looked at it and the Lord said, no, it's not the right one. And I got to thinking about tying in with a couple of the things that Pastor's been teaching us. So the lesson I chose is from our Albanian lesson we had last year.
Feeding the multitude. Missionaries Kurt and Stephanie Plagenhoff watched as refugees streamed into the old warehouse. Men, women, and children from Kosovo came into Albania after their homes were destroyed because of war. These people had lost their homes, and everything they owned. They had nowhere to go and nothing to eat. Stephanie looked at the soup that was cooking in several large pots and the trays of bread, cheese, tomatoes, and cucumbers. "We only have enough food for about 50 people, she said. "There must be 200 out there. What should we do?" "All we can do is pray," Kurt said. The Plagenhoffs and the people of the church had cleaned up an old warehouse to take in some of the people whose homes had been burned. They put mattresses on the floor for the people to sleep on, and they cooked pots of soup for them. People in the church also took refugees into their homes. Even though the church people were poor and didn't have much, they were willing to share what they could. Many of the refugees had traveled long distances over mountains and with nothing to eat and very little to drink. 5,000 refugees came into this small Albanian town of 10,000 people. Over 200 refugees came into the warehouse that Kurt and Stephanie had prepared. The people were exhausted and shocked from the war. They had made a long, hard trip and had suffered many horrible experiences along the way. But how could Kurt and Stephanie feed them all? As the soup cooked, they prayed that God would provide. When it came time to serve the people, they ladled the soup into bowls and handed them out. The soup kept coming. Bowl after bowl was filled and handed out, and the soup kept coming. It didn't run out until the very last person was served. "It's a miracle," Stephanie said, "just like when Jesus multiplied the bread and fish to feed the 5,000 people." That night was the beginning of the Plagenhoffs' ministry to the Kosovar refugees. They cleaned up 2 more old warehouses to shelter more people and took in several hundred. God gave them the opportunity to help, talk, pray, cry, and share the gospel with many people for the very first time. These were Muslim people who had never heard the gospel, never read the Word of God, and had never been in a church. About 100 refugees came to their church every week after that. When the war was over, the refugees returned to Kosovo. Kurt and Stephanie went with them and helped them rebuild their homes. They also helped provide them with food and clothing, since they had lost everything. Most of the refugees in the Plagenhoffs camp had come from a city in northern Kosovo called Mitrovica. This was a city of over 100,000 people that had no evangelical church. The city was totally unreached. Kurt and Stephanie helped to start a church in Mitrovica. Since then, the church has faced a lot of opposition, but many children and youth are coming every week and hearing the gospel. Mitrovica is being touched by the love of Jesus, and it all started with the loving hearts of the Christian people in Albania and a miracle from God.
We're now going to take the BGMC offering.